in that famous Porsche of hers, and I don't know how long. Change the
Well,
oil, Janet.
which always made me wonder why, if she drives a Porsche, does she sing about a Mercedes Benz?
Well, her friends all have Porsches, so she got one. But what she longs for, even now in heaven, is a Mercedes Benz.
So it tells me she probably got her Mercedes Benz up there in heaven. Because in heaven you get what you need, right?
But you don't get royalties.
Well, your people that you leave behind do, though. Somebody's cashing in on every time they show up early.
Spotify and the Canadian truckers.
That's how they signed Joe Rogan.
That's
is
how
they used Janis Joplin's money.
They gave it all to him.
And they gave it all to Joe Rogan.
Now that makes me mad. I was mad before, but now I'm really mad.
Now I'm getting ready to quit. If that's the case, I'm quitting Spotify. I don't pay for Spotify, but I'm quitting anyway.
One thing I wanted to mention was there probably wasn't a car ad last night during the Super Bowl that caught your attention, was there?
Yes, there was.
Was it for a Chevy Silverado electric style?
Certainly was.
Wasn't that good?
That was it. It hit so many levels. It hit nostalgia because, of course, if you're a Sopranos fan, you loved that commercial. For those who may not have seen it, if you were in a hole or something yesterday, Chevy did probably the commercial of the Super Bowl.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, which was they brought back Jamie Lynn Ziegler and Robert Iger, I believe.
Eiler,
yes, Eiler. In a commercial that had Jamie Lynn, that was the opening of The Sopranos, but instead of the Escalade that Tony would be driving, his daughter Meadow was driving an electric Silverado and met up with her brother at an electric charging station, showing number one, that they were still had brand loyalty. Number two, that they did make it out of the series.
Apparently they're still with us.
They're still with us. They did, because the big speculation has always been, did Tony get it? Did the guy who walked in, was he a hitman? And was he going to wipe out Tony and his family? And so, as I put in my Facebook post last night, at least now we know the kids survived.
It turns out that he was a Chevy salesman coming to deliver a product.
He was there to bring, and then it showed the electrification of the Silverado and how the kids have taken over from the older generation, shall we?
And if you want to get to a charging station in New Jersey, you got to drive by Satriali's.
It seems that way. It seems that you would have to stop by a spot where, I mean, it was interesting as I did have a thought that I don't know that I've ever seen a place that was associated with gruesome murder featured in a Super Bowl ad.
But good pork sandwiches.
Good pork sandwiches, but you never knew exactly what you were getting in the pork sandwich.
I'll have the Moltisanti, please.
Yes, with a side of Adrian.
We have just a little left.
Yes, she was a small woman.
I read in Variety today that David Chase directed that spot.
Must have been interesting for him, huh?
Under high secrecy, using the original crew from Sopranos to do the spot.
Well,
and let that be a lesson to all of us, Vinnie, that a good theme song lasts forever, and all you have to do is hear the opening notes, and you're right back in it.
Right, which also now begs me the question: why was The Saints of Newark such a horrible movie?
I didn't see it.
You're lucky.
It was stinko, eh?
It was really bad. It was just, I mean, if you were a Sopranos fan and you were hungry for something, it gave you something. But imagine opening up that Reese's peanut butter cup and finding that they're filled with motor oil.
That's not good.
No. no. It was you should have left it alone.
I'm allergic to motor oil, by the way.
Yeah, it was better off left alone. And unfortunately, as a nod to nostalgia, whatever you want to call it, they had Gandolfini's son playing a young Gandolfini, and the kid just
Couldn't do it.
couldn't do it. The only person that was cheering his performance was Sofia Coppola.
Oh, God. So the lesson was not well learned.
And the lesson was not well learned. You don't do it along bloodlines. You do it over who could act. And you could have put a Adam Driver in that role. And, because he had the similar look, the similar build and everything, and probably had a more credible performance. But the movie just had no redeeming value. It had nothing. Tony The Sopranos, the characters had even Tony had redeeming value about him. He was vulnerable. He had, he was in touch with himself enough to go see a psychiatrist, an analyst, a therapist, there was redeeming value about the guy, even though he was a scumbag.
You loved him.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they did. They came up with a Godfather, like David Chase came up with a Godfather like character that you loved him and respected him. You might not have wanted to live next door to him, but you could see how men wanted to be him and women wanted to love him. I mean, you saw that, and even in Carmela, even a sympathetic. You could have sympathy for her where normally you probably wouldn't have much sympathy for her because she stayed with this guy, but you knew that ultimately she could never get out of that situation.
And her father was never going to sell that house.
Right. That house is, there's no divorce in the mafia. You stay together. Because in fact, you know the secrets.
You can have a sit down, but you can't have a get out.
Right. Yeah. Right. There's no getting out. There's no I'm moving to Aruba. We saw what happened in Casino to the guy that moves to Aruba.
Yeah, he got as far as Bimini before his head came off.
He didn't even make it to the pool. I mean,
And he really wanted to swim that day.
But they told him, listen, it's really not good to go swimming with holes in, water seeps in.
No, it's not a good idea. It's like taking a vacation right now to Spolpakia.
So yes, but it was really again, it was a great commercial. It was for a great product. I think that truck is going to be a hit. Among many who said that electric trucks will never be a hit, all of a sudden everybody wants one.
They were wrong.
I thought the second best was for the Kia EV6 with the mechanical dog.
Yeah, the cute.
And certainly a slap in the face at Subaru, who always includes, dogs in their commercials.
In fact, their commercials are star Steven Seaweed's Golden Retrievers.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a great commercial. I immediately, when I saw it, I was like, wow. Matter of fact, up until that point, I really thought that was the best part of the whole evening or afternoon so far.
When the game started, I had a little emergency here. I can't remember what it was. I put the game on pause and I was recording it. So I was 5 minutes behind the game. And I wanted to do what I usually do, and that is fast forward through the commercials to get to the action. And then I forgot I'm supposed to watch these commercials.
Right.
So I can't fast forward. But do you remember the spot of the miniature football players that come out of the television and destroy the house? That was a good one.
Yeah, it was. What was that? Was that? I forget what the spot was for.
Was that for NFL Networks? NFL Networks? Was that?
It was NFL Networks.
I'm not certain
because I didn't particularly. I liked the spot. Well, no, I liked the concept. I didn't particularly like the spot
because they broke everything.
Yeah, they broke everything, and it was something else. It was kind of creepy to me. There was a certain creepiness about that spot. So it was okay. It was a good spot. I realized that critically looking at it, it was a good spot. But there was just something that was creepy about that to me.
They had caricature faces, so it wasn't the real face of
Right.
the player involved.
It was like it looked like Toy Story. What was it? Toy Story. I mean, was that done by Pixar?
Who knows? It wasn't the players were seen, but not all of them had flattering caricatures of themselves.
Right.
Although I did like the end zone dance on the kitchen counter.
Yes, that's the final seconds in the commercial. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely creative. It was definitely inventive, and it was definitely a takeoff on a movie that I probably haven't seen.
And I thought there were some failures, but for the most part, it's just
what was your failure?
The one, the beep, beep, beep. The Pac-Man thing.
Oh yeah.
We're waiting to see what it is, and at the end, it's something you don't know. It's a thing. What is it? It's another phony money thing.
Yeah. What was the phony money one that was? The Larry David one.
Yes, it's never going to work. I'm
right. The Larry David one. That was. I thought that was
Larry David's throughout history calling it wrong.
Yeah. Now that would work, but the Arnold Schwarzenegger spot.
That was I kind of like that.
It didn't do anything for me. That nor the Jones spot, the Tommy Lee Jones, and
I didn't get that at all. What was the Jonas brother doing? They needed another Jones.
Well, yeah, they were. He was. Which one was out of place? I guess is the best way to put it. And it was Nick Jonas,
right?
Who almost is a Jones.
Makes no difference. It makes no sense. It doesn't. It's not a punchline. It's off base. It's off kilter.
Well, yeah. It just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't do a lot for me. What was my? There was one proposition I was waiting for. I thought that for sure. Let's see. Oh, the over/under on Saturday Night Live personalities in commercials.
So there was one.
No, there was way more. There was more than one. Leslie Jones.
Oh yeah, she's passed. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean,
anytime,
past and present, anytime.
Even Chevy Chase
people. Except I don't include people that have hosted Saturday Night Live. Just
no, I understand.
Cast members of Saturday Night Live. And I forgot. I didn't see the first. I don't know. I was in the car for the first maybe quarter, almost a quarter, a little less than a quarter. Did they play the Colin Jost Scarlett Johansson commercial for Alexa?
I don't recall that one.
See, now that to me is one of the funniest commercials that I've seen in a long time. If Alexa could read your mind, have you seen that?
They did play that.
Yeah,
I can't say when.
Yeah, that was. I think that's one of the more creative and one of the more funnier commercials. Now I've seen it. The bad thing about the internet now is that they show these commercials 2 weeks before. Many of them. They didn't. Let's face Chevy scored with they kept the Sopranos commercial under wraps. I mean, I got a friend that works for Chevy, my friend Shad, and he didn't even text me and say, "Hey, you make sure you watch."
No, you can't tell anybody.
And so you get to see some of these commercials 2 weeks out. So by the time you see them on the Super Bowl, they don't have the effect that they had. But that Alexa commercial was also very, very well done.
He left the oysters in the car for 5 hours.
Yeah. And using a real married couple, I thought was kind of neat. They're married, Johansson and Jost. I do think that she should have hyphenated her last name. So she would be Johansson Jost.
There's a lot of people with that name in Slovakia.
Yes, please don't say this if you have a stutter. We could be here all afternoon.
As it turned out, it was a pretty good game, and with one drive making all the difference.
Yeah, as most of the games were this post, if there was one overriding theme throughout the postseason, it was the last drive wins, right?
Last drive wins. And also the Rams don't have a running game, which we thought they did, but they don't.
Well, they don't. Or did Cincinnati figure out a way to stop their running game? I mean, certainly the injuries didn't help them.
No.
But I thought more than that the Rams didn't have a running game, it was much more that Cincinnati figured out how to shut them down.
Cincinnati defense really had a championship game.
Yeah, if you go on defense, they should have won that game. But
except for the penalties that helped the drive, which is
and of course the referees decided to start calling the game with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we're not going to call face mask in the first half, but we might call it in the second half. But no guarantees.
Right. And I don't know what the NFL doesn't care. I mean, it's obvious at this point that the NFL doesn't care what their referees do. They've given them all the tools that they need to be dishonest. And if you were a Seahawks fan watching that game, you had shudders of 2005, where you were sitting there looking and saying the refs really want the Steelers to win this game.
And so they will.
They'll figure out a way to make it happen. And I think you had the same thing going on there. The refs waited for their moment, but they sure put themselves in the game and into the controversy the minute they had the opportunity to do so.
I thought the Rams defense was also stellar, and not just the last plays, but throughout the game, especially their linebacking crew. The linebacker 50, 58, and 54, you probably saw them, Justin Holmes and Connor Floyd. Both those guys are 6'5". That's unusually tall for a linebacker. They're big, long, lanky, the type of linebackers that San Francisco used to have during their championship days.
Right.
And guys like Milt McCall was 6'7". It was incredibly tall linebackers.
Right. The Rams team kind of does a little bit harken back to those 49er teams. There's the
way they move the lines,
the way they bunch up on one side to attack the quarterback. There's definitely some. His name is escaping me now. The defensive coordinator in the 80s for San Francisco,
George Seifert.
Thank you. Who became the head coach of the team?
Right.
But that looked in many ways like a Seifert designed defense. It wouldn't surprise me if these young guys go back and they look at some of those films and they say, look at how this worked and look at how that worked. I'm sure.
Remember Candlestick Park, for the coaches to go to the halftime, they had to go down the press elevator.
Right.
There was one elevator and it was small. And I rode down at halftime next to George Seifert, who was going down to do the adjustments for the halftime. And it was like standing next to a nuclear reactor. He was just looking at his clipboard like this. He didn't move a muscle. And I'm standing next to him, and it was like, the energy coming off that guy.
I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when we would go to Mortem Stadium to watch the Cougars, the coach's box was right next to the broadcast booth.
Yes.
And you would hear because you had paper within walls in that thing. And you would hear everything the coaches were saying in that booth. And I mean, there was some intensity going on in that room.
Oh
Guys
God, yes.
MFing each other, and just a real. If you wanted to learn about the back end of football, all you had to do was sit in the broadcast booth for a game,
Ooh, yeah.
and you would learn more than you probably wanted to know.
A frank exchange of views, like a call between Biden and Putin.
I mean, I remember guys definitely screaming, and there was one time two guys were definitely fighting with each other. I mean, there was definitely scuffling going. There was some heel locking going on. But it's an intense time for people, and sometimes people will do extraordinary things to get their point across.
It was a fun game. I don't think calling Aaron Donald influential or the best player in the NFL really sums up what he's able to do, not just on play after play and not just throughout the entire season, but when he has to, he will find a way to be the most influential guy on the field. And it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to get to the quarterback, but you'll have two guys on him preventing it to allow the middle guard.
Right. He is
who's that guy?
He's that kind of player that draws the attention to him. If he's not the center of attention, he draws the attention to him so that somewhere along the line, somebody else is left in a position to be able to create the havoc that they need to create.
Like a Sean Robinson. Chris Collinsworth called him out many times last night, number 94 on the Rams line, who was the run stopper. And he was just there every damn play after play after play. You'd think they wouldn't run it anywhere near him, but he became a factor in the game.
Yeah, I think at some point I did ask myself, why do they keep going at this guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, is there another dimension here that I'm missing? Do they expect something to happen to him? Are they trying to break his neck or something? What's the what's the reasoning? Because I'd have thought that you would have at some point not gone anywhere near him. Left him out on his own.
It was a Super Bowl game that almost left us without two starting quarterbacks. They both took dings, and the one on Joe Burrow really looked serious. I mean, he was in some pain.
And I'm not an Odell Beckham fan, so there was a certain sweet irony to me, to see him not play in the second part of that game. I don't wish injury on anybody, but
it certainly made a difference.
Yeah, it made a difference. And also, maybe it brought him a little humbleness, like the game can go on without him.
Did you see him crying after the game?
Yeah.
He got himself a ring, and well, he's had whether we like him or don't like him, he's had an up and down career, and this was going to be one of the ups. Instead, it turned out to be a down, and so he was really lucky to come away with a ring.
Yeah, it's funny, Mikey. You know me. I'm not a fan of vagabond teams.
Yeah, I know.
I find something reprehensible about the fact that a franchise can just pick up and move and tear the heart of a city out, like the Rams, like the Chargers, like various and sundry other teams, the Cardinals, teams that. And I know it's a business, and I know that they have a right to do it's their business and everything like that. But there's, ever since I saw what the Colts did to Baltimore.
Boy, that was ugly.
And I mean, I guess it goes back to Brooklyn and the Dodgers for me and everything. But certainly, going back to Irsay moving his team out of town in the middle of the night.
And the league said, what do we care?
Well, it was the first time that Pete Rozelle and the league were shown to be as powerless as they really were. It was, one of the first times when you looked at a football team and a commissioner who was thought to be a czar.
Yeah.
And found out that he wasn't a czar, that he wasn't what, all powerful. And he really had no power to stop guys like Irsay or Al Davis from playing shuttle diplomacy with their teams.
And the other owner said, let's let him do it. Sometime in our future, we may want to do it ourselves.
Well, nobody wanted to stop him because they all knew that with the ever expanding map of the United States, that at one point they could come up with large amounts of cash just by, they didn't even have to move the team. All they had to do was threaten it. You had to have the hammer. You had to have the ability to be able to ultimately move your team. And the NFL has played that better than probably any other sport.
And if you do move your team, there is one factor that you better factor in, because it's going to cost you about $800 million to pay the league for that right.
Yeah. But as we see, these guys make enough, and women make enough money that it's worth it for them to break a contract, to pick up their team and to move it. And they don't really care about public opinion. They'll do a crocodile tears press conference saying how much we hate to leave the wonderful fans that we've made here over the past 100 years that we've been in this town. But, they'll pay me $1.50 more to play down the road.
It's time to move the Bears to Salt Lake City.
Well, the Bears, I believe, didn't the Bears move? Well, I don't know what the Chicago Cardinals that moved down to St. Louis, then to Phoenix, but was not there, did the Bears actually start in Chicago, or did they start I thought they started somewhere else.
I believe they started there, but I'm not an authority on the Hallis history.
I mean, again, I'm one of those. So for me to see the Rams, which may be the original express bus of football teams, well, the Raiders were.
When did the Rams move? 1949 from Cleveland?
Yeah, they went from Cleveland to L.A. and then L.A. to St. Louis and then back to L.A.
with the stop in Orange County.
Yeah. But that was always, wasn't that always a temporary thing? I don't remember now.
Well, the reason that they moved, and it's happened to a number of teams, happened to the Raiders too, is that the Coliseum might be fine for USC, but it's not a place to play professional football. It just is not. There's no luxury boxes. There's no individual seats.
Well, again, what's your definition of playing football?
It's got the same setup as Kezar Stadium used to have.
Yeah, it's and yes, the standards have changed where an owner doesn't want to build a state. I mean, you can stay in a place, but it's going to wind up looking like the Oakland Coliseum with an ugly addition that you hired the wrong contractor to put on the stadium. Who do you think got paid a ton of money to put that thing on the Oakland Coliseum?
It was Blind Pugh, who used to be a member of the Long John Silver's crew.
Boy, I tell you, man, that was, I've seen ugly additions to houses in my life, but I don't think I've ever seen anything that bad.
No, it was ill-fated. But, what a lot of great football got played there anyway.
Yeah, that was it. Oakland did what they had to do to, I think the city fathers and mothers in Oakland, or now I guess you would have to say the city fathers, mothers, and others in Oakland, pretty much thought that they were going to be building a new stadium.
They thought so. They thought that many times.
Yeah, with, at some point, but unfortunately or fortunately, they didn't get the opportunity to, because Mount Davis was on the move again.
Strange little fellow. There's a genetic problem there. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something, as they say, ain't quite right.
Yeah, it was. Well, listen, it's a guy, Al Davis always did what was right for Al Davis.
Of course.
As probably every person in that position, or most people in that position, will do. They'll do what's right for them and their pockets. We always look at it from the view of a fan. They look at it purely from the view that it could be a garbage company, it could be a pork store, it could be,
I see the
whatever.
analogy.
Business.
I see the analogy here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a business. And it just so happens to be a demand item. It happens to be something that people want. So they know that and they control that factor as much as they can.
And there's an X factor. There's for making money at it. You got to have the concessions, the parking, the luxury boxes, the ticket price, the head count, and it's got to work out because you don't have 150 games in a year. You got to make your profit with the few games that you have. And so if you build a facility without that X factor equaling a profit, you've wasted all that money and all that time, and you're still going to be a vulnerable team that can't compete financially with the big boys.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess at one point that was true, although since revenue sharing and equity in these teams has gone up, skyrocketed, I couldn't imagine that you couldn't compete at some level because they all get that broadcast right check. They all get that, whether you're that's what allows a team like Green Bay to exist, is that the owners of Green Bay, which are the people of Green Bay, compete on an equal footing with Robert Kraft.
Well, the rebuilding of the Cincinnati Bengals will show Green Bay how to, if they want to keep Aaron Rodgers and they want to go to the Super Bowl. You saw that Cincinnati added 7 men to the defense, most of them to the line and the defensive backs. Just that addition in itself is more than the average team in the NFL is willing to do. They've got the executives, they've got the coaches, they got the plan, they've got the wherewithal and the scouting. Now go out and get me 7 new defensive players that will start and make a difference for this team. Not many teams are willing to do it.
Right. And you just hit the nail on the head. They did something that many teams will not do or are afraid to do. And that is do a mass rebuild on their team, upset the apple cart a little bit. See if, spend the money and go out there and bring in or scout or get the players that will get you to where you want to go. I mean, there's so much involved. You have to have great coaches. You have to be able to stick with your coaches. When the times aren't so good, you have to see that thing in that coach that says, this guy is a winner, even though he may have a 6 and a 6 and 15 record or whatever it is this year. Next year or down the road, he will have the better record. He just needs this to make it all come together.
Remember the 49ers put together their winning team when they could only win 2 games a season. But because they kept moving people in and moving them out and moving them out, changing all the positions and drafting well, they went from 2 wins in the season to the Super Bowl. But that just shows you the type of vulnerability the team has to be in before it's willing to make those changes.
And they also had, an owner at the time who players would jump through a hoop of fire for.
Yep.
See, Eddie D, people that weren't in on it probably didn't get how grown men adored this guy.
He was on the team.
He was a part of the team. He was one of those rare owners who didn't fly separately from the team. He flew with the team. He took them out. They had parties in his house. He was living a frat boy dream.
Yeah, he was. And a good dream too.
Yeah. And So players consequently would push themselves for this guy, maybe more than I've ever seen a team push itself for an owner.
Oh, did you see Russell Wilson having
Having tea,
a quiet talk with the commissioner?
having a little bit of tea with the commish.
I was trying to think how many diamonds were in his necklace and crucifix.
You know,
that was a dual-edged sword. Hey, I'm a diamond-bearing Christian.
I'm glad he was there. I would much rather have seen him in uniform there.
Yes. Not this year.
But Russell Wilson is a good guy. And if he can impart some wisdom on the commissioner, which I always contend that the commissioner needs a lot of wisdom from anywhere he can get it, because he's got to understand so many different sides of the football.
Well, Seattle fans can look at the Cincinnati Bengals and say, are we as good as the Bengals? Are we that good? No, you're not. So look how good you have to be to lose. That's what I always point out. Look how vulnerable you have to be, how extraordinarily talented and wide-ranging across all aspects of your team just to lose.
Yeah. I mean, usually the losing team in the Super Bowl is better than all the other teams that are sitting home watching, aren't they?
They are.
I mean, it's part right there on the job application. If you go to the Super Bowl, you must be better than the other 28 teams that are sitting home.
One of the things I liked about the game was I was nervous. I don't know if you were. It made me nervous. That last drive, you had nothing at stake. I wanted the Rams to win.
Yeah, I didn't really have because I'm not really. I mean, I wanted Cincinnati to win, but I'm not a Cincinnati fan. I'm not a big fan of the city or just the whole deal. It's a very and here's where politics do come into it. I mean, it's a very racist city.
Yes,
it's a very there's a certain I don't know. It's just it's not my kind of place. It's they have good chili and that's about it.
The Klan's more comfortable there than we would be.
Much more comfortable. And WKRP was nothing but a TV series. So
they did not have radio that good, and they still don't.
When I was there, when I have driven through there a number of times, they have had mostly right-wing talk radio, and there's one good rock station there that I remember happening upon, but for the most part, it's very right-wing. Us and them build a fence around your house because they're coming to get you.
It's mostly an extension of Kentucky.
Yeah, in Missouri. Yeah, it's the people who couldn't get work in Kentucky come up to Cincinnati.
The people who think Mitch McConnell is a fair and equitable man.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine thinking that.
Imagine coming to that conclusion.
Imagine having the brain power to come to that conclusion.
Speaking of brain power.
And he's always consistent, Mitch. That's the one thing about Mitch that we love.
There's another consistency in this world, and that is the Mexican cartels always are consistent. When they deal drugs, they're not really about the drugs, they're about the violence with the drugs. Now they want to take over the avocado business in Michoacan. And they did so by threatening the inspectors from the United States who bring the avocados in. They thought this would be a good thing to do. We'll stand them up, we'll tell them what we want, just like we do with the cartel business all over the world. The United States cut off avocado exports yesterday after importing in the last 6 weeks 135,000 tons of avocados in for Super Bowl Sunday. And now we're importing 0 avocados from Mexico, all because the cartels thought that they could run it a little more efficiently than it had been run in the past. Hey, you are U.S. inspector. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut your balls off, put them in your mouth, and hang you from the overpass here in town or your hometown. Take your pick.
Yeah, we can string you up on your lawn. We'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
I
Hello.
didn't know about that, which makes me
The
believe.
cartels cut us off, Vinnie. Oh dear, we haven't had this problem in a while.
Yeah, this is
I'm
something.
Michael Knight in Los Angeles. He's Eric Vinnie in Seattle. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Let's see if we can fix this. Let's see. Why now it still shows me that we are. Oh, Mikey. I'm getting you as doing nothing.